Hello, hello.
Hey everyone, welcome to
Hello.
a community call to this Wednesday, June the 4th, 2025. And yeah, today we're going to have Rajiv with the state of the USDS market, with the weekly updates as always. And then we'll be discussing staking and any type of questions that you guys might have. So if you want, you can start writing them either on the chat or on the Q&A section, and we'll be addressing them very very soon. So yeah, Rajiv, if you want to take it away.
Sure. I see we're right bang on time today. Do you want to give it some time, Juan, to see if people are still joining in, or should I kick off?
I, I don't know. I'm always like, I feel that if we keep letting these 5 minutes, people will just show 5 minutes late, and we can wait a
Okay.
few more minutes if you want.
No, no, I'm happy to go.
Just be an awkward recording.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and people can watch the recording later.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully everyone's seeing my screen. I'm going to start with the usual, I guess, overview of the wider market landscape. I'm going to quickly take out Biddle and Usual, who've had a very stable week. And I guess the first call out is the sustained spread you can see in yield between SUSDE and SUSDS. And as we saw in the last weekly period, that has continued to drive inflows for SUSDE. And actually, as we also saw last week, those inflows are largely driven by Pendle and the Spark allocations. And you can see more detail on that below if there's interest. For SUSDS, on the surface, a positive week, and we'll jump straight into the drivers there, starting with the wider weekly supply for SUSDS, sorry, for USDS, which incorporating everything. And you'll see a few new entries here on the right, the more eagle-eyed ones. New entries are Unichain and Optimism, representing the multi-chain expansion and fee minting there. So if we strip those out, you'll actually see it's been a sort of a slightly trending up week for USDS. And as always, as we get more granular, we see the different trends driving that. So the first one I want to call out for this week are the USDS markets on Aave, where you'll see this reduction, and the same trend playing out on Spark. So a reduction in the USDS markets on Aave and Spark, but that's actually been driven by increased borrowing demand for USDS. And I'm quickly going to switch over to one of our internal reporting dashboards, and hopefully this shows up, where we sort of track in much more granular detail many metrics, and this is sort of the USDS amount borrowed across these markets. It's on a different timescale, but you can sort of see over this last month period how that's really ramping up across both markets, and some interesting trends we saw following the money of where that's actually being used. But that's the first trend. So a reduction on the USDS lending markets. Compensating that, and as we saw the beginning of this last week, but it's really carrying on and gaining momentum, is the increased demand coming from Pendle. And I mentioned earlier how Pendle has also been a huge demand driver for SUSDE. In fact, Pendle is so structurally important for these markets that we decided we're going to add a chart just to look at yield coin markets across Pendle. You can see that same trend that I just highlighted for USDS, but what I wanted to highlight here is just the magnitude of demand that Pendle has been able to drive. And if we look at USDE, so the ethereal USDE offering, and even SUSDE, and you can just see how you can see that magnitude. So we thought this is going to be really important to track, and so we've added this. Of course, it's open for everyone, but as USDS grows here, this is going to be an interesting one to keep tabs on. But
it looks to me like you're not moving your screen, Reggie. I don't know if others are seeing the same thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so I was stuck on the old one. Okay, let me go through that again. So here's the pin. Do you see it now, Rune?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so here's the pendle chart that we've added to the dashboard. This is the trend that we've seen for USDS. And you can see how that momentum from last week has nicely carried on. And the magnitude you can see for the USDE market. So this is the ethereal one, and also for SUSDE. And again, we're very early days. Like we actually even saw the same trend over a wider time frame for usual. So we've added it here. We'll keep close tabs on just how much of a demand driver Kindle is. The other uptick in demand from this week, if we look at SUSDS, which is this graph here at the bottom right of the screen, once again, you see the entry of Unichain and Optimism as new entries this week as part of the multi-chain expansion. But stripping that out, you can see the uptick over the week, and that's been driven by Maple. So again, ongoing momentum from the short-term liquidity held on Maple's Syrup USDC offering. So the summary for the week really has been one of stable supply for USDS, with increases from Pendle and Maple offset by the USDS markets on Aave and Spark. But that is actually driven by increased borrowing demand for USDS. So, yep, that's the overview for the week, and apologies for not switching screens there.
Nice.
One thing I want to get clarified is, so this additional supply from Unichain and Optimism, that is supply simply held by Spark liquidity layer still, right? Or do you have a measure of like how much of that has actually been like distributed out to end users?
Not yet.
Because obviously a bunch of liquidity is just sitting under Spark's control, waiting for kind of disbursement out to users that will actually that are actually buying it with USDC or however they get it.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Rune. Since it's literally just been launched, I doubt you've seen much movement yet. However, next week we'll be adding those dashboards so you can see exactly that, just as we already have for Arbitrum and Base.
You should I think also for next time, like you should have a way to track circulating USDS, right? So we should differentiate between like sort of stale USDS or like sort of internal like internal USDS that is not circulating, and then USDS that's actually circulating, right? Because the circulating USDS that represents the demand, and that's what actually really matters, right?
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. I think as we sort of get more chains on board, we look at how we reduce the noise here.
Yeah. There's going to be a bunch of this stuff in the future, like a bunch of like pre-minted USDS as well, like the long-term SUSDS and so on. So that's going to be really useful to track long term, because like actually in the long term, so SUSDS is a special case where that's right now Spark is kind of doing a bespoke like Spark liquidity layer based SUSDS converter on Base, Optimism, Arbitrum, and Unichain. But longer term, this will use Skylink, which means that it's not going to be a star that maintains the SUSDS converter, like the ability for anybody to instantly convert any amount of USDS into SUSDS on any chain that's supported. That's going to be run by Skylink. And what that means is it's like Sky itself that basically pre-mints and holds the USDS and SUSDS liquidity on these multi-chain converters. So we'll have a huge amount of like idle USDS sitting in those things, and of course we will find a way to not count those when calculating circulating supply. Yeah, there's also like the ASC requirements, like the stars will also be required to hold a bunch of USDS and kind of have that as like available sort of market making liquidity. And that's another type of like it's not that interesting to measure that compared to how interesting it is to measure actual end users holding actual USDS. So we can, yeah, maybe you can give us an overview of that, how much of it is idle versus how much of it is circulating next time.
Yes, we can.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. And yeah, now to the main topic. It's been a very interesting week. Rune, I don't know if you want to comment on the migration while we discuss the staking as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think just going through exactly what's been happening with Sky staking and the governance migration that's kind of the topic I put up for today, since we don't have anything better to talk about. But this is also, of course, very interesting to discuss. And then, as always, it'll just be like an open Q&A, so you can all just write whatever questions you're interested in discussing. But basically, there were like, I mean, we really had like two major events in the last couple of weeks that are like pivotal moments for all of like the end game process and the Sky transformation. So the first one was the transition of the governance control of the system into Sky from MKR onto Sky, and this like this opened the door to the total deprecation of the MKR token, because there's now no, like, the MKR token now doesn't do anything other than have a claim to Sky tokens, like being able to upgrade into Sky tokens. So that's setting the stage for massively reducing the complexity of the system and just like dealing with the confusion of having two tokens, which has been a huge problem for Sky, right? Which continues now to still be like a huge drag on like liquidity and all of that, because it's just very confusing when there's two tokens. So it was a major milestone to do the actual governance migration, because doing a governance migration is, that basically means you are putting all of the assets in the system at risk, right? Whenever you touch core governance authority. So that was a very long, difficult process for the teams to develop the transition system and audit it and verify it and test it over and over and over. But it's now it's all behind us and didn't go wrong. So that was very lucky, very fortunate. I guess not really that lucky. It was more a matter of a lot of work, a lot of preparation, and then it went ahead as expected. And with that, there is the delayed upgrade penalty as a part of this, right? So because the governance control has transitioned over to Sky, MKR is fully deprecating, and this turned out to be really, really essential for the whole ecosystem. So unfortunately, there's just no, like, I mean, one thing is it's confusing to have two tokens, but having multiple tokens also means that you can't get exchanges to migrate, for instance, and it also can cause tax issues even. So fully deprecating MKR is just going to be much more beneficial for everyone involved. And so the way that's being done is in a very, like, basically the maximally graceful way that it was possible to come up with, which is this extremely slow and patient penalty that basically happens if an MKR holder doesn't upgrade their MKR in time to Sky. And so what happens is, like, after 25 years, anybody holding MKR will be able to get 0 Sky for that MKR. So basically, you have to upgrade within 25 years. And I guess in order to avoid a significant penalty, you have to do it within a couple of years, right? So and really, it works by like levying a 1% penalty every 3 months. So it's starting September 18, approximately, and then increasing by 1% every 3 months after that. So if they wait with upgrading after a year, they will get a 4% penalty, right? And if they wait 5 years, they get a 20% penalty. And this is, of course, it would be great if nobody got any penalties at all. But the reality is, even if you get something like, let's say, a 20% penalty, probably that you're better off because the kind of the harm that the confusion and the issues around migrating the tokens and on exchanges and just generally facilitating the upgrade, the harm that was causing was probably worse than something like, let's say, a 20% penalty. So even users that are very slow to upgrade are still going to be better off. And of course, hopefully, as many people as possible can upgrade early. And there's also going to be some MKR that is like permanently lost, right? That is like stuck in broken smart contracts or like in wallets that are totally lost. And those assets are now just going to be burned eventually, right? So after 25 years, those tokens will be fully removed from circulation and basically be burned. Yeah, so that's everything on the upgrade front. And then the actual interesting thing is now it's possible to activate staking, which just happened a couple of days ago, 2 days ago. So with Sky tokens, you can now stake, and the return on staking right now is like 15%, 16%. And this is also a major incentive for users to upgrade their MKR to Sky. And I think because the staking is in place and because it's very attractive, we'll quickly get to see, once all of the exchanges have migrated from MKR to Sky and upgraded their tokens on behalf of the users and all of the things involved in this process, we'll get an accurate, we'll start to have a good picture of how many MKR tokens are actually lost and will end up getting burned. Obviously, not everything that doesn't move in the short run is lost, and there's still going to be some that will upgrade later. But I think like a lot of people will take the will want to get the staking rewards while they're really high, and as a result, I think there will continue to be a lot of upgrading activity in the coming weeks.
What's the easiest way to stake, or can we not say?
Well, to learn about all this, you have to go to, I think it's mkr2sky.com. I'm actually not sure exactly is that the exact domain, mkr2sky.com? No, it's not. Well, there is I don't know what that dedicated website is, but obviously you can use sky.money and DeFi Saver. Let me see. Okay, here it is. It's okay. No. Okay, it is upgrade.mkr2sky.com. That's like the simple link. Yeah, where to stake outside Sky.money. So I was assuming that DeFi Saver would have it, but it seems like they may not have it yet. So I actually don't know. But that definitely, as soon as there are other endpoints supporting that, I think that there should be an effort to create awareness around all of the different opportunities to use your Sky tokens. Yeah, I actually don't know. Off the top of my head. Like, I think probably DeFi Saver, I think they're usually very fast, this kind of stuff. So they might probably be ready to jump on this and integrate Sky staking. Yeah, there's this comment around. There's a lot of examples of other tokens that have upgraded or migrated, and you can end up seeing double digit amount of like double digit supply of tokens are like frozen or lost or disappeared and actually end up getting burned. So that's obviously, I mean, that the kind of the effect of that, in a sense, has already existed in the ecosystem, right? Like tokens that are lost have been lost since they were lost, meaning they have not been providing any sell side liquidity, right? There's been no sell pressure from them for a long time. But the problem is then what happens still is that you count them into the market cap. So basically, it's sort of like it looks like the token might be overvalued, like it has a higher valuation than it actually has if you count the lost supply. So clearing that out is beneficial for like making sure that the right valuation is reflected on market cap websites and that kind of stuff. Then wait, let me see. There's okay. So before I get to the questions, then one thing I want to talk about is SPK launch, right? So right now, the staking engine provides a USDS reward that is based off the kind of basically kind of like the buyback system in a sense, right? Except it then doesn't buy back. Like what the way it works is you have this thing called the splitter, and then the splitter determines what percentage of the buyback, or rather what percentage of the kind of the sort of the chunks of USDS coming out of the surplus buffer goes to Sky buyback, and what percentage goes to staking rewards. And right now the total rate of basically assets being used out of the surplus buffer for buybacks and staking rewards is 500,000 per day. And the splitter is at 50%. So it's 250,000 in buyback per day and 250,000 in staking rewards per day. Then on top of that, when some of the core incubated stars, they launch over the coming months, including Spark with SPK, but also a bunch of other very valuable and very serious star projects. Some of their tokens will also go to Sky staking rewards. Spark is a bit of an exception, and it's quite unique in that a huge amount of its tokens are going to Sky stakers, while most other stars are not going to be it's not going to be such a huge allocation of the tokens that will go to Sky stakers. For Spark, it's actually something like I think it's like 15 to 20% of the maybe 10 to around 15%, probably around 15% of the total token supply of all SPK tokens are going to be distributed out to Sky stakers over a period of 10 years, with half of that being distributed in the first 2 years. So initially the rate will be quite high. And then, like I said, on top of that, there will be several other very valuable stars also having their tokens distributed out this way. And then as a staker, you then can basically use the same interface on Sky the Money and all of these other websites that will hopefully soon support Sky staking, and you can choose which reward you want. Then you can't get all of the rewards at once, or rather you can, but you have to kind of like split up. You have to have multiple staking positions and then choose a different reward for each position. But regardless of how you do it, obviously the more staking rewards are, like the more total rewards are available and sort of distributed across the Sky stakers, the higher the return will get. But I think so the plan is to not let the staking return sort of spike far above what it is now, because right now the return like the staking reward that's being distributed right now is actually not fully sustainable, as in right now the protocol is like spending more money on staking rewards and buybacks than what it is what it is earning in revenue after paying for expenses. So when these additional tokens from the stars they go live, then that's an opportunity to actually make the staking reward properly sustainable and try to basically keep the reward around the current rate, but then actually make it something that is possible to put in place for a very long term, like for years, which I think is going to be very desirable, right? Then that's going to mean we will attract sky stakers that are in it for the very long term and that are happy to hold the tokens for the long run, and basically can feel reassured that there is like a sustainable plan for how this staking reward will continue to be sourced over the for basically for a much longer period. All right. So then now there's this question around the rate splitter. So so the question is, does it make sense to change the splitter to 100% and incentivize migration now and then start buying back after September 18? And basically, I think in general, I don't think it's a good idea to try to kind of change rewards or change tokenomics like this too drastically, but rather actually the goal should be to try to just keep it stable and then try to make it sustainable, how the buybacks and how the staking reward currently works. But it does. So the thing is actually that in the Sky treasury management function, which I'll get into in a second, right? So the treasury management function is this like strategy or like algorithm like design that aims to answer the question of like how to distribute buyback, how to distribute staking for permanently, right? So it's supposed to be an irreversible, immutable system once put in place, right? That once and for all solves this problem and then creates just complete reliability around what can you expect from staking and what can you expect in terms of buybacks. But the treasury management function is heavily incentivized towards doing buybacks and is only allocating a small amount to staking, while currently the splitter is at 50%. So I think basically there's already I think there's an argument for why it naturally makes sense to have more buyback and less staking rewards, but that is currently counteracted by the need to support and promote upgrading users MKR to Sky, which is why it makes sense to have the splitter at 50%. But I think, obviously, there's a lot of this stuff to consider and sort of watch how everything is evolving, how everything evolves over the coming weeks. But generally, I think the better choice is to if everything seems to be going fine, I think the right choice is to try to stabilize and sort of maintain expectations for people. Yeah, and then just to tie it back to what I said earlier, right? Then the thing to then look out for is that there's a lot of very large and very valuable star launches coming up, and that's we'll see how much, but they are potentially going to have a major impact on the staking rewards when they go live, right? Because then they begin to distribute a lot of their tokens to stakers. So that would be the moment to make adjustments, I think, right? So you make the adjustment right when some new external force is coming in and sort of changing rates and changing what people expect, like changing the kind of the behavior of the system. And it makes sense to try to counteract that, to just maintain people's expectations, I think. All right. What's the difference between how much we are spending on buybacks versus Sky earnings? Well, so I mean, if I understand this question correctly, this is basically asking about the splitter and like how much money is being spent, like how does the money flow? What's the kind of basically the current interim treasury management function around buybacks versus the Sky staking rewards. Wait, now I get it. Okay, so this is about this. All right, this is about the sustainability of the kind of the total value return, right? So like the return of value from the system to token holders. So basically, like the total amount of buybacks plus staking rewards, which is 500. Like currently, that's 500,000 per day being used for that. The actual system profits per day is I mean it's hard to give an exact number, but if you look at info.sky money, the kind of the if you extrapolate expenses for the last year, then right now that gives a number of about like 90 million to 100 million per year. So that would be that would be a little bit more than 300,000 per day. So as a result, the system is like overspending by 200,000 per day, and we can expect the surplus buffer to go down by about 200,000 per day. I don't know if that's actually what's happening. Like in practice, it's just very hard to track this because expenses aren't like sort of smooth, and it's also the same goes for income. Like I think in a couple of days we're gonna get the USDC, like the light PSM USDC income, and I think that might be 10 plus million. That's gonna replenish the surplus buffer, right? So that's gonna make the picture look a bit different when we suddenly get another 10 million in. There's also, this is also important to mention, actually. I think there's some accounting errors right now in how the surplus buffer is, like what it's showing. So I think it's actually less by something like 7 million or something like that. So that's another important thing to mention, right? So there's going to be like a big inflow coming within a couple of days, I think. But actually also there's like an error in what this is. I'm not 100% sure, but this is something, I believe this has not yet been corrected, and this was identified recently that there's like some overcounting, and it's about 7 million or so. So basically the surplus buffer is actually a little bit higher than what it displays right now on info.sky money. And if you adjust for that, then it is possible that that we are currently the surplus buffer is currently going down with around 200,000 per day. So the question is then, like, how much additional staking reward is SPK launch and these other star launches going to give, and is that gonna be enough to offset the 200,000? And also, is the splitter going to change, or will it just be, should the splitter stay at 50%, and then both buyback and staking rewards should be reduced as the system moves towards being more sustainable? And I guess actually, I think this is going to be the price of Sky should also impact this decision, right? Because if the price of Sky keeps going up like crazy, because now there's a very high staking reward. I mean, right now it's going down again, right? There was a big spike in the Sky price right as staking rewards launched, and now it's sort of it's settling back down again. But then if it keeps going up even more, and it goes really, really high, and maybe the price ends up being double of what it was when staking launched, that's a very good argument for reducing buyback significantly, because that's, of course, this is also how the smart burn engine is supposed to eventually work. All right. Yeah. So now there's a question about smart burn engine. So can you describe the smart burn dynamics? There were prior considerations based on token price. As we allocate to staking, the price goes up, which counts against buyback pressure in some sense. Is there still a function to consider market price? So there is a very simple function built into the current proposed treasury management function, which is still going to get updated before we actually hit, Sky endgame, and core, fixed core expenses go away, and we switch to the treasury management function. But the key thing is that what's relatively easy to set at this stage is sort of the logic around, if you have a way to determine the valuation of the token, how do you then dynamically adjust how much capital do you keep as a kind of as dry powder, and how much do you ramp up the burn to really burn fast when the price appears low compared to the valuation model. And so that function is relatively straightforward to come up with, and it's just kind of like an arbitrary like a sort of a strategy that is you can't really objectively derive that too easily. You just have to kind of decide on how quickly do we want to react to what we perceive to be deviations from the valuation versus the market price. But then the actual way to find out the market price, that's the really difficult part. There is already a proposed formula for this, which is, basically, you look at growth, and then you look at price to, you look at market cap to profit, like the kind of the PE ratio equivalent. You look at that, and you look at the growth rate of the profits, and then from that you can derive a valuation. And there's all sorts of what do you call that, old school wisdom around how to do this. But definitely that it makes sense for that to be something that is continuously updated by the community, by the co-executors, in order to just make the system stronger over time. But yeah, just overall, I guess that was a very long answer to this question. But overall, definitely it's essential to have a valuation model built into a burn system, right? Because it's just absolutely essential that you don't burn when the price is really high. Then it's basically harmful, or at least it's just a total waste of money. While on the other hand, if you do this if you have this smart burn mechanism, and you start to buy only when the price is low, then what that also means is you're just introducing a lot of stability into the system, because you're counteracting large crashes in the price, and that actually ends up being really beneficial in Sky's ability to absorb insolvency risks, right? So in situations where actually new Sky has to be emitted in order to recapitalize the protocol, if a star defaults, and it has you'd liquidate the entire star, but it's still not enough to cover all of the debt that the star has. Then first all of the senior risk capital gets used up, and then if all the senior risk capital is used, then at that point it's a matter of emitting new Sky tokens, and then hopefully finding buyers for those Sky tokens in order to avoid the system effectively collapsing, or rather USDS holders or other stablecoin holders getting haircuts. All right. Next question. So how many stars do you think will launch farming this year? So I think that we can expect probably there's a good chance of having at least 4 major stars with farming where some of their tokens will go to sky staking. But I mean, in like and like my honest opinion is it's more than that. But from experience, it's very likely that these things get delayed, even if it seems like now the processes and the support infrastructure for actually getting these launched is just extremely mature and professional and scaled up and functions really well. But on the other hand, it's actually an insanely complex challenge we're talking about here, right? Because it's like taking the complexity of the system as it is today and then like scaling it up several times over, right? Like it's really like suddenly the ecosystem goes from it used to just manage a single system, a single governance process, a single kind of set of complexities. Now that's going to get copied over and over, right? So suddenly things get 3 times as complicated and 5 times as complicated and so on. And of course, in the long run, this is not going to be a problem. Like in the long run, there's extremely beneficial economies of scale because of governance AI, right? That makes it possible to really easily handle all of the complexity, handle all of the data, process it properly, and sort of sift through the noise and find actual things that require attention. But that can only be properly developed once there already are multiple stars running live, right? So getting these like large early core incubated stars up and running is a really critical moment in time, and it takes a lot of humans and a lot of labor to get that to work. But hopefully hopefully a lot of them will come out this year, and that's going to lead to a lot of data and a lot of breakthroughs on the governance AI front. And then on top of that, it's gonna just like continue. I mean, there's going to be even more. It's gonna continuously improve, and then eventually, the ecosystem of stars itself will grow, of course, and ideally become really huge, which is the real goal here, right? The stars that are launched and end up farming out their tokens to the benefit of Sky holders, they're actually an exception. Like that's only happening because these are the stars that were incubated and funded by the launch project. But that turns out to itself, I mean, that is itself just too difficult basically to do in the long run, and it's just too much complexity and requires the core to get sort of entangled with the stars. So long run, that's not how it's going to work. In the long run, the Sky agent framework and the star agents and the executor agents and all of these agent protocols that are basically powered by Sky, it's basically more like their project building on top of Sky, and they're paying Sky some fees to run their systems and to get the support from Sky. But Sky doesn't have like a direct stake in them. Sky just makes money from charging them these like baseline fees. And that's just like, it's unfortunate, of course, that then we're not going to have tons of tokens in the I mean, there is going to be a lot of tokens early on because there's a lot of these co-incubated stars, and they're going to be very valuable and very exciting projects, and all Sky holders will get to be able to get a piece of them. But let's say like 10 years from now, there's not going to be any tokens going to Sky holders. At that point, all they will get is cash. But ultimately, it's just more scalable. So it's actually the better solution, even if it sounds like there would be more value to go around if Sky holders are getting a bunch of tokens as well as cash. All right. Next question is, what is the roadmap for the next 3 to 6 months? Well, I mean, one thing I wanted to talk about today is why USDS? Because that's kind of in addition to SPK, obviously, and then other stars that I can't mention now, but some other pretty exciting stuff that's going to be coming soon. Then the big core feature that is coming up on the roadmap, that is basically like the next core thing that is coming out, is yUSDS. And so yUSDS is the system that makes staking even more powerful by opening up staking borrowing, like staking borrow. So that's where there's unlimited capacity for users to use their Sky while earning the staking reward, which is going to include both the USDS that you can earn now, but then also the star tokens like SPK tokens and other star tokens. And then this Sky that is actively staked and actively earning rewards can be used as collateral to then generate USDS sourced from a capital pool that basically like more risk tolerant stablecoin holders deposit their USDS into. And this is called yUSDS, this asset. So yUSDS is basically like an asset you get from you basically sort of buy it or you convert your USDS into it. And then while you're doing that, you're providing the capital that stakers can use to borrow USDS with, generating USDS and then using that for leverage, or using it for leverage, or using that for short-term liquidity needs, or whatever you might need. And so this means that you have all the key DeFi features in one place, right? As a Sky holder, you get staking, you get staking rewards, so you don't have to worry about going out and depositing your Sky into random DeFi protocols to try to get rewards. And you also have the ability to unlock its liquidity, right? You have the ability to borrow against it. So you also don't have to try to like tokenize it or wrap it and then deposit it into something, or even give up the staking rewards in order to be able to unlock its liquidity. And I think this is really essential because it means that there's going to be much better governance security, because the Sky tokens will generally be held on the Sky, like on the Sky protocols systems and within like star interfaces and that kind of stuff, right? So there's much greater security around where is the Sky held, and you don't end up with like a whole bunch of Sky held in like one particular liquid staking wrapper or centralized exchange or something like that. And yeah, there's also SRUs. There's also a couple of other features coming after that, but there will be multiple posts refreshing this coming in the next couple of months. There's still, there's just a small amount of more work to be done basically this year before we really reach this like Sky endgame point where the system will start to really behave like it'll start to look a lot more like it's really long-term end state, where you have lots of stars doing all the interesting stuff, and also the core itself doesn't really change and mainly just deals with risk management. Right. What is your skincare routine? I guess we ran out of. I guess I basically put you all to sleep with the super complicated Sky roadmap and endgame technical details. But well, I actually just restarted using retinol, so I can recommend that if you're really really old like me and you need some good skincare. That's the powerful stuff.
Nice. GM is saying stay out of the sun.
Yeah, I failed to do that today, but yeah, that's another good one. Yeah. All right, guys. We're pretty far now, so I will refrain from digging deeper into the treasury management function, but we can get into that next week or the week after, or this is pretty much going to continue for quite a while until Sky gets so stable and so boring and so predictable that there's literally nothing to talk about anymore. So tune in next week.
Nice. Thank you, Rune. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.